Okay, so here we have our toilet with a dual flush cistern, sort of compact design. What I'm noticing is you can hear a drip, drip, drip constantly, and then every now and again the filler valve will activate just to top it up. These can be serviced. They can have a new rubber seal put on the flush valve, but this particular type of flush valve I cannot get the seal for. I did purchase one similar and kind of cut it to size, but it's not really working, so I'm biting the bullet and I'm going to change the system inside. So first things first, we need to isolate the water supply. So luckily enough, this has got a ball valve on it, which I shall turn off. If you don't have one of those, you will need to turn off the main water supply. So here we go, we take a screwdriver and we give that a 90-degree turn and to shut off the water supply. Okay, now on this particular cistern I can lift the lid straight off. The buttons here aren't actually attached to the valve inside. On some they are attached and you have to unscrew the collar off of here first, but on this one I can just lift it straight off, as you will see, like that. So this one has two prongs, one for the half flush, one for the full flush. You see they correlate to the buttons on the top, and then inside you can see we have the filler valve, which no longer lets water in because I turned off the water supply, and then this is the flush valve and this is the overflow. You can see I've marked a couple of lines on the inside of here already, and that's how I know that over time the water level drops away. So the top line, you can see that the top line is where it stops filling to, and over time it kind of drops down to that lower level there. So I'm wasting water for no good reason. So right, we need to get the water out of there, so you do most of that by flushing the toilet, like so. And then on most of these flush valves it's usually a slight twist and turn and some securing lugs down at the bottom match up with a hole, and then you can lift it out. Shake out the residual water. You can see on the bottom there's a silicone washer. That's one I made. Kind of okay, but not brilliant, but I couldn't find a direct replacement. So unfortunately I've got to replace the whole thing, but so be it. Now then, the remains of the flush valve is still in there. As you can see, it goes through a hole in the bottom of the porcelain system with a securing nut on the underside. So on this we actually need to take this whole unit off to get to the retaining bolt. To do that I need to undo that and that, but first of all I need to get out the residual water that is lower than the inlet hole there. So that will be a sponge job to sponge it out. As you can see, that no water is now coming into there. This I'm also going to replace. Whilst I'm doing all this I might as well put a new one on. I mean this one seems to be working, but it's been in about 9 years, and whilst going to this trouble I might as well just replace the whole lot. That comes out by undoing this plastic nut on the bottom there and taking off this supply hose. So I shall sponge out that water and then come back to you. Okay, so using a pair of adjustable pliers like this, I'm going to loosen off the flexi hose nut. Now bearing in mind we turned off the water, and down here this flexi hose, as you can see, is full of water. So you just need something to mop it up with, like so. Okay, so the flexi hose is detached. Now all I need to do is to undo the plastic nut on the back of the filler valve. Now is this hand done? Now we have to try and use a pair of pliers on that. It's kind of got wings on the nut. Let's have a go. I think we'll use these adjustable spanners. Let's get it undone. There we go. Now when it's got installed, the cabinet unit to my right wasn't in, that got put in afterwards. There we go, there's the retaining nut and washer. So it's made access here a little bit tight. Now this, now clear of all water, should just lift out. There you go. Out. See, it has a rubber bung at the bottom that goes into that hole there on the right and seals everything up. So now I need to undo that and that, and that's a case of reaching round underneath to find the back of the nuts. One there and one on the other side, and it looks like I can use a large flat-headed screwdriver on those nuts. Okay, so reaching down into there with the screwdriver, and initially I'm going to hold the nut at the back with my hand, and oh yeah, great, comes undone. So hopefully the other one will be as easy. There you see. Now these need to get reused for holding this porcelain cistern onto the back of the toilet pan. I'll just give them a rinse under the tap to clean them up a bit. Okay, now with both the bolts, retaining bolts taken out, it should be a simple case of lifting this porcelain cistern off. You might find on some installations that this cistern is bolted through here and here to the wall. Now for whatever reason, I never did that on this installation. This has been in there about 9 years and there's never been any requirement to do so, but just to let you know that those holes there and there are fixing points to keep this firmly attached to this wall, so you would have to take those out. There we are, away the system comes. So here, this is like a sponge rubber bung that couples the porcelain cistern to the pan, giving it a soft contact point. This doesn't actually seal any water from coming out of the cistern itself. This is just a cushion effectively, and to stop any water that goes through there splashing back out around the edge. The bottom of the cistern itself has a rubber seal to take care of sealing the water into this. So from this point on, it's a case of us removing this bolt here off of this plastic body, removing it and installing the new flush mechanism. Okay, again, so using the adjustable spanner, wrench, grasp the plastic nut collar and undo it. There we go. Let's start coming undone. Off it comes. The rubber gasket is on the inside, obviously, because that's where the water is. And out it comes. And there it is, the rubber gasket. Now I'm confident that this seal was not leaking, because if this seal was failing, water would come out the side here and would be leaking out the side of the toilet, and you'd find wet patches on the floor. So my belief is that the contact inside here with the rubber seal on the bottom of the flush valve had failed, so water was breaching through here and going down into the toilet as it should, but just not when I wanted it to. So on that basis, I'm confident that this was the fault and not this rubber seal here. So a bit of a clean and wipe there. Okay, so here we have my new filler valve. This one I've gone for a brass fitting at the bottom, brass nut, brass threaded. It's just a bit more durable. Doesn't really make a great deal of difference, but these tend to be a bit more expensive, so I thought I'd go for it. So these work by having a float valve. In this little cage is this float. As the water level rises, it makes the air that's trapped inside this float go up. That then pulls this lever up, which turns the water off, stops filling the toilet. But you need to tell it how far to fill, and typically they do that by extending the length of the overall unit that sets the height of where the float is. And they often have a little plastic key thing that goes in underneath here, which you pull out. That enables you to extend the length of the filler valve to your requirements, and then once it's set, you just give it a little turn, it clicks in place, and you put the plastic key back in. Now, until such time as we get it all up and running, I don't really know how what sort of length I need on that. I'm just going to sort of set it to a kind of an approximate amount that I think I need. So that should do. So I mean, I guess I could try and compare it to the old unit, which that's about the same. So we'll see how we go. The old unit, in fairness to it, did have some further adjustment here, which this one seems to be lacking. So anyway, just a case of taking off the nut, taking off the washer, leaving the wedge-shaped rubber seal on the bottom, and inserting it into the cistern. so here is the new flush mechanism. This bit extends through the bottom of the cistern there. There's a rubber seal here, and then this washer goes on, and then this nut. And it's much like the other one. You can do a turn and lift the main flush mechanism off. There you can see the rubber seal there that actually stops the water from going down into the toilet unless you want to flush it. And then this is the base bit, and that silicone seal sits on a sort of flange inside there and seals the water off. So, and by the way, this extending bit here is the overflow, internal overflow. That can be height adjusted. We'll sort that out once it's all installed. So first things first, let's put that in. Like so. Put the washer over. Making sure not to cross thread the nut. There we go. There it goes. Don't have to be super tight, these seals do a great job. Just a little nip on that. Like so. That's done. And this also comes with a new rubber seal for putting on the back pan, for that to sit. Okay, so now it's a case of putting the retaining bolts back in. Okay, so the new filler valve is in. The only difference is that this section here doesn't extend down as far as the old one. And when I first installed this toilet, I done everything to the absolute right, millimetre accuracy, and there was no scope for connecting this pipe up. I couldn't do the pipe up at this end properly without it leaking. So what I've had to do is change a bit of the plumbing down here. So originally I had this L-shaped section out of the micro valve, ball valve there, and I think my thinking was there originally was because I was worried about it failing on the waste pipe, which in reality it doesn't actually, as far as I can work out. So what I'm going to do, take that bit out, put a new straight piece in there that needs to be approximately 6 centimetres long, and for this to connect straight down onto, and we should be good to go. So fortunately I've got some offcuts of pipe in the garage. Here we are, I've marked out 6 centimetres there, so just using my pipe cutter, I shall rotate that around, like so. It's always tricky to do it on such a short piece of pipe, because you can't get quite so much leverage, but yeah, just keep rotating that, and then every now and again tighten up the knob. By tightening the knob, you're pressing the pipe into the cutting blade a little bit further, and then you rotate the pipe. The cutting wheel goes around the pipe and slices it. There we are, 6 centimetre section there. So I just need to clean that up with a bit of wire wool, take any little burrs off on the inside. Because this isn't actually being soldered, I don't have to worry too much about it being super clean. Not to the extent as if I was soldering it. I've got myself a new olive and a new nut, so that goes over there like that. like so. That goes down into the ball valve, tightens up, and then my flexi hose with a sort of fast fitting just slides over the top. So wire wool brings it up lovely, look at that. Okay. Now, in the past, I've put PTFE tape on that. To be honest, I don't ever really see the point of it. The olive should do a good enough job. If the olive isn't doing a good enough job, then it needs to be redone. So that goes in like that. Obviously I'll tighten it up and then that will connect down onto there. So let's get myself, just need a pair of knoll grips just to keep the main body of the valve in place, and then using an adjustable spanner this pushes down on top of that like that. And we should be good to go. Let's put a sponge down there just in case. And let's open that valve. Seemingly okay. There you go, water's running in. Obviously I need to put the flush valve in there, otherwise it's just going to keep going in, so let's shut that valve off again. There we go. Okay, so I just need to take the old flush mechanism off of the top of the toilet, so undo the back nut. Out that comes. This is the new flusher. As you can see, it's got a button and an insert button. If you only press the big button and not covering the half button, the plunger extends, what's that, 15mm. If you cover the little button there and the one, it only extends about 10mm. So for a half flush you cover the small little button. For a full flush you press the main button. Half flush, half flush, no sorry, half flush, full flush. And then that connects to this cable mechanism that's attached to the flusher. You press in this little device here to allow that to connect, like so. Now you can see you can flush either half or full, half or full. So let's connect this to the cistern lid. So take the back nut off, take the chrome collar off, insert that through, position it however you want, put the chrome collar on the back, and put the plastic nylon nut on, like so, making sure it's all nice and lined up. Like that. There, flusher is on, and then that just connects to the back of there like so. Okay, so this is the flush body. There are adjustments that can be made depending on how much water you want in your system. So there's a slide on the side here, and you literally just slide it up or down. Up for less water, down for more. So if I set it about there, and see how we get on with that. Put that down in there and turn to lock it into place like so. Let's open the valve again. It's filling up. Let's see when that turns off. Let's see how it compares to my old marks. There we go, that's not so bad. I think I can live with that. That seems to be fairly good, really. I could just do extending up the overflow a bit. Obviously, with the height of the overflow, you need to make sure that the overflow is lower than any holes in the system, whether it's the holes for the fixing point, whether there's fixing points in there or not, or if you've got an external flusher on the side. You don't want the water level to breach any of those levels. Right, so all that remains to be done is to get the flusher mechanism back on. Okay, so the system's all back together, and we hit the flush button. And we're back in action. And the system begins to fill back up. Job done. So just to keep an eye on everything round underneath here, just for the first hour or so, make sure there's no leaks or drips, and we're all good.